Hi friends, I'm Abby and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about 10 anticipated releases for the next quarter of 2024, so releasing in April, May and June. So unlike my video for January, February, March, where I found it extremely easy to find releases, like extremely easy. I had so many releases, I had more than 10 releases because there were just so many things coming out in February, like everything in the publishing world was coming out in February. I have struggled to find 10 releases over the next 3 months. I was like, what is going on? Where are all of the new releases? I'm looking through the list going, okay, obviously there are books here. Obviously there are, but I want to be talking about books that I'm interested in reading, that I am hyped about, and not just any odd thing. So I really struggled. I struggled quite a bit, but I did manage to find 10 in the end. And one of the things you might note is that this does lean a little bit more romance heavy than normal. Maybe it's like as we come into summer, more of the romance releases are coming out that I am particularly interested in compared to other times of year where it's more heavily fantasy. The fantasy releases seemed a bit low on the ground. Anyway, we will get started, and I don't think my synopses are going to be very good today, but I will link all of the Goodreads descriptions down below in the description so you can go check them out more fully there. So on the 2nd of April, Just for Summer by Abby Jimenez is coming out. I've read, I think, everything Abby Jimenez has released to date. I find her romances very, they're a very good mixture of pairings that I can really root for. The settings I generally quite enjoy. I like most of the tropes she mixes in. So in this one, we're following main character Justin, and he has a curse. The curse being that every woman that he dates then goes on to find their soulmate after having dated him. And he feels as though he is cursed to never actually find his soulmate. And then one day a woman slides into his DMs with the same problem, and they come up with a plan. They'll date each other and break up. Their curses will cancel each other out, and they'll both go on to find the love of their lives. And we'll see if it just might work. I think similarly to some of her other books, it's based in Minnesota. I don't know if that's where Abby Jimenez is from, but I really like that setting. It's naturey and mountainy and lakey. Great description words there, Abby. But I seem to like that rural US setting. And also I enjoy that her characters are generally in their 30s, so I think I can relate to the age group that she is writing in. Then on the 9th of April, The Familiar by Leigh Bardugo is coming out. So this is a new release from her. I don't believe this is a series. I believe it's a standalone because it's not listed as a series on Goodreads, but Goodreads can lie. So this is a historical fantasy set during the Spanish Golden Age, which is, I've not really read that many books set in Spain, I don't believe. So definitely an intriguing time to explore. So it'll be interesting to see Leigh Bardugo's take on that. We're following a main character, Lucia Cortado, who is a maid in a household, and she secretly has magic until her scheming mistress finds out about this and uses that to better the family's social position within society, which brings Lucia into the notice of some higher members in society, such as Spain's king. This plunges into a world of seers and alchemists and holy men. I believe there is also a romantic element in this. And that is actually the first time I've read the synopsis, so it's probably a very bad attempt at re-describing it. But I've enjoyed the majority of what Leigh Bardugo has written, and I'm happy that she stepped away from the Grishaverse because I was fed up with the Grishaverse. I'm excited to see her doing other things. And then back on the romance, Emily Henry's new release, Funny Story, is coming out on the 23rd of April. So I have read, I think, everything that Emily Henry has written in the romance genre. I haven't read her YA books from quite a few years ago, but I have read all of her romance releases and I have typically really enjoyed them, and this synopsis sounds really fun. So we're following a main character, Daphne, and her fiance Peter has always told their story in such a romantic way until the day he realises that he is actually in love with his childhood best friend, Petra. So this now leaves Daphne alone, but with her dream job as a children's librarian, which is barely paying the bills, so she needs to find herself a new roommate. That new roommate ends up being Petra's ex, Miles. So they move in together, hardly communicate until they start posting misleading photos on their socials. But will these photos always be faked, or will they actually end up becoming true? So this sounds a lot of fun and I'm really excited to dive into it. So April, maybe I'll be reading, well, April, my plans are to read Rhythm of War, so maybe I'll be pairing Rhythm of War with these romances to try and like lighten my mood. I think it's going to be needed. I think maybe it's perfect timing these romances are coming out to align with my plan. Not saying it's definitely happening, my plan to read Rhythm of War. Okay, and then in May, I've got one of my sort of like fake releases here because I struggled a bit, as I said, to find things. On the 9th of May, the Bone season 2, 3 and 4 are getting their newly edited re-releases. So with the covers matching the 10th anniversary edition of the Bone season. I know that she's rewritten, re-edited the second one. I don't think she's done much for 3 and 4, if anything, but they're all getting re-released with these new covers. I think some of them are going to have the special editions as well, and with new material mixed in. I need to reread the Bone season and then reread the second one and then read for the first time 3 and 4, because I read this back in like 2014, 2015, loved it. It was 5 stars at the time. I've forgotten so much about it, so much. I would really like to like reread this, but I've just been putting it off because it's going to be like a 7-book series and it has taken, well, 10 years and we still haven't got like the 5th book of a 7-book series. But now with these re-releases, I feel as though it's a good opportunity for me to do my rereads. I think all these editions look absolutely stunning. They do, they look so pretty, and I think they're going to look absolutely amazing on my shelf. Then on the 28th of May, Evocation by S.T. Gibson is coming out. So her second release of the year, and she wrote A Dowry of Blood, which I read last year and enjoyed. So this one we're following David, I'm not going to be able to pronounce that, Aristarkov, who is a psychic prodigy and as a teen operates under the shadow of his oppressive occultist father. Challenging words. So now, years after his father's death and rapidly approaching his 30th birthday, he's content with the high-powered life he's created as a Boston attorney and moonlighting as a powerful medium for a secret society. But with power comes a price, and the devil has come to collect an ancestral debt. David's days are numbered and death looms at his door, so it is him trying to get out of this deal or debt with the devil. And I think there's going to be a romantic pairing or multiple pairings that will come about because of this. Intriguing. Okay, so that is May. So quite limited in May. June, we've got some more. On the 1st of June, Burn of the Everflame by Penn Cole is coming out. So I have not read any of this series, but it's always good to get on a series when the final book is coming out, because then you've just got everything and you can binge the whole thing. This is a fantasy romance series which I've heard a few people talking about recently. So I heard Rachel from Ravenhead Reader recently talk about it, as well as Books with Brittany. So this one is definitely now on my radar as a fantasy romance series to read, especially as it is soon to be finished. So the first book is Spark of the Everflame. It is a 4-book fantasy romance series, slow burn enemies to lovers, with magic, dragons, angst and banter, set in a mortal world colonised by the gods and ruled over by the Descended. And we're following a main character, DM Bellator, who yearns to escape her poor village life. Following her mother's sudden disappearance, she is thrust into a dangerous world with a civil war brewing, and attracts the notice of the dying king's heir. So I think it has some quite like cliche elements to it, but I've heard the series get really good at book 2. So definitely one that I am intrigued by. Additionally, another series that I have not started, but the 3rd book is coming out and the conclusion to the trilogy on the 4th of June is Mirror Heavens by Rebecca Roanhorse. This is the 3rd book in the Between Earth and Sky, with the 1st book being Black Sun. So I do own Black Sun and I've been putting off reading it until the series was complete, so maybe this is the push that I need to actually finish this, to actually start and read this series. So it's inspired by the civilizations of the pre-Columbian Americas and woven into a tale of celestial prophecies, political intrigue and forbidden magic. I've heard rave reviews from so many people about this 1st book. I think the 2nd book had some more mixed reviews, but I feel as though from what people have said about the 1st one, it sounds so interesting. So I'm definitely now excited to get into this series and see how it all, if I enjoy it, hopefully how it all wraps up as well. I do really enjoy getting into series when the final book is releasing, because it feels as though you're like in with the hype, that you're reading things along with everyone else and you don't have to wait for a release, because the release is now out. Also coming out on the 4th of June is Service Model by Adrian Tchaikovsky. Adrian Tchaikovsky is just like I was about to say a machine, but that sounds a bit cruel because I've met him, he's a lovely man. He can write so many books. He does not have writer's block, it seems. He can just keep writing and writing and writing books in different genres, and it seems as though he always has a release coming out. I've only read one of his books, which is Children of Time, which I did quite enjoy, and I would like to read more of his. I actually have Empire of Black and Gold on my TBR, have done for quite a while, haven't read it, which is the start in his fantasy series. But he goes between fantasy and sci-fi, it seems, and this is a sci-fi standalone that he has coming out. It's a humorous tale of robotic murder. So we're following a robot who has accidentally murdered their owner, and now they don't know what to do, as their programming requires for their owner to issue commands. And so we're then following this robot and the humorous things that it ends up getting up to without its owner controlling its programming. So I think this sounds like it's got some similarities to Murderbot. So potentially if you like Murderbot, you will like this one. And I do quite enjoy looking at like a futuristic version of humans and AI and robots and how that relationship changes over time, especially with where we are today and how technology is consistently evolving and becoming more and more intelligent. I feel as though sci-fi authors always bring up loads of interesting ideas in terms of robots and AI. Definitely intrigued by this one. And then on the 11th of June, Alexandra Rowland has a new book coming out called Running Close to the Wind. So I read A Taste of Golden Iron, which was a standalone fantasy romance story, and I think this is going to be the same. I believe it's set in the same world, but we're following a main character, Avra, former field agent, and Avra has accidentally stolen the single most expensive secret in the world, and the only place to flee with a secret that big is the open sea. They seek help from their on-again, off-again ex, who is a pirate captain, and they set sail on these high seas where they encounter magic and mayhem, sea creatures and intriguing characters as they try to sell the secret on the black market. I think there is a LGBT romance in this. I did quite enjoy that not first book, but like that other book that she wrote. I think she did a really good job at like building the romance over the course of that book and making it mostly fantasy with that plotline, sort of like that angsty plotline thrown in. And I would love to find like a pirate book, a fantasy pirate book. Like I haven't found one yet, like a Pirates of the Caribbean style. And then the final book, but also coming out on the 11th of June, is Not in Love by Ali Hazelwood, her latest STEM-centered romance. So it's a forbidden secret affair that proves that all is fair in love and science. We've got our two main characters, Rue and Eli, who, due to their workplace situation, have to pretend that they are not together. Their affair is secret, no strings attached, and has a built-in deadline of when things happen at this company that they're working at. So I feel as though it's got the combination of like workplace drama, workplace romance, with the STEM setting, which is quite normal for Ali Hazelwood to focus on things. And I find her romance books are generally quite addictive. Like you can read it in a weekend, or I can read it in a weekend. I'm intrigued to see how she works with a relationship where it's like kept secret and not one where we're like building towards like that relationship like starting at the end of the book, because it seems as though from this plot line this relationship is already going to be it's not going to be there at the very beginning of the book, but it's going to be like quite early on. So it'll be interesting to see how she maintains that angst. So those are 10 new releases that are coming out over the next 3 months. Slightly more romance heavy than fantasy heavy this time around. I guess maybe that's as we get into summer, that's what it's going to be like. Probably not for me and my reading, as I do mostly read fantasy, but that is what the releases are looking like. And definitely not as many as February, because I feel as though we had this many releases in February alone. So let me know if there are any new releases that you are looking forward to that I have missed. I will also leave the playlist to all of the anticipated releases videos that I've done to date, so that can also be found below if you want to check out any of those. And thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my future videos. Bye!